What will be the biggest challenge for the next government?
I think the biggest challenge is to get everybody, the country, back together again, because we're so divided at this point, and we need somebody who's willing to get in and step up to the plate and really be accountable for what they say.
I think for the next government, it's going to be really difficult for them to bring down COVID inflation costs, because COVID inflation has affected everybody, not just certain businesses. It's affected even just regular people. So I think that's going to be something that's really difficult for them to change.
Clean drinking water in all our Indigenous communities. We have the largest freshwater supply in the world. There's no excuse for our Indigenous communities to not have it. None whatsoever.
I feel like the next challenge will be to get the people's trust. I'm not sure with the COVID situation how it's been handled. I don't know if people still trust the government right now. So I'm pretty sure the big challenge will be to get people's trust, make sure that they understand what's the situation, how we're going to be able to go through it. So I'm pretty sure that's the most important thing for the next government, be able to gain the people's trust again. Because a lot of people are divided between specifically that situation.
The biggest challenge for the next government is getting Canadians to buy into what their policies will in fact be. I think that we're dealing with a divide right now in society where a lot of people really don't have a positive outlook what our future is going to look like. So instead of looking long term, 10 years, 5 years, let's get more realistic and let's talk about the next year or two, especially with the whole pandemic. And we've had Black Lives Matter, and we've had the LGBTQ plus groups, and just everybody is saying, where as Canadians do we stand? Where are we going with this? Are we standing together? Are we united? Stuff like that. So I think that is a big deal.
Well, there's the deficit they piled up, and the whole transitioning out of COVID, and basically several things that have been neglected a bit during COVID that they'll now have to catch up with.
One of the biggest challenges, I think, is keeping the promises to the Indigenous people. And when we see what has happened in the last while, how the public have become aware of all the children that were missing and killed in the residential schools, I think that issue has to be kept to the forefront, and we have to do something about that.
I think the biggest challenge for the next government will be deciding exactly how we're going to get out of this pandemic in a coherent manner. But we find with the provinces that they have very different approaches to how we're managing this crisis. And that has created problems, everywhere, just because we can't coordinate effectively enough what we're doing.
I think environment is one of the biggest challenges we have to address. It's getting more and more important. And we know they talk about it a lot in campaigns, but afterwards we don't see a lot of stuff done about it. So more and more it's getting important. We have to address this.
I think coming out of COVID and rebuilding the economy in a safe way is probably going to be the biggest challenge.
I think another big thing is especially in Toronto, the amount of people on the streets, all the homeless. I feel like there's definitely should be a way where we can at least help them get on their feet and help them at least have a base of a life so they can move forward.
Probably the economy and the health crisis with the doctors, because I think there is a brain leak from Alberta. Many people are leaving that province from an education background, health background, and even the economic transition with environment. So because we talk a lot about global warming those days, as you heard what's going on in BC. So that's going to be a huge challenge, because it's not just one challenge, but a few at the same time.
Well, we talked about so many things today. The pipeline, COVID, American influence. I mean, we've got all kinds of issues.
And we think that it's in the right track.
But you think there's no shortage of problems?
Oh, no, I wouldn't want his job. No, we're grateful for any effort on our behalf. It's a big country, but we've got big neighbors.
I think that everybody has been hurt in some way or injured or had a difficult time in some way in the last year and a half or whatever it's been. And it's going to be really hard to get people on your side, whatever your platform is. It's going to be tough to get people to trust you and to gain trust.
Well, the rise of the PPC has me very concerned. I'm very concerned about the attitude of the people, and even this morning watching they're talking to one of the representatives, and he's still campaigning even though the election's over, and that means there's a lot of misinformation being sent out there, and I'm concerned about that.
I think because of COVID, it's going to be like the biggest challenge, of course, is getting this country going again, and everything that will take, and the climate change too. Got to take that into consideration after the summer we've had. Oh my goodness.